Hi everyone, so my name is Raf, and I've been solving Rubik's Cubes for 8 years now, and I often practice on my Twitch stream. Sometimes I encounter some curiosity from new viewers who have never seen the hobby before, and I get questions like, how long have you been solving the Rubik's Cube? How do you even solve one in the first place? And where do you get your good looks from? Okay, I may have made up that last one. I always make it a point to tell people that solving the cube isn't actually as hard as people think, and that everyone can learn to solve the Rubik's Cube. So whether I sent you to this video from my stream, or whether you found it otherwise and are interested in solving your first Rubik's Cube, give me a few minutes of your time, and with a little bit of patience, let's get that cube solved. So this is the iconic classic Rubik's Cube, with a 3x3 grid on each side marked by a different color. So you might notice that the colors of a Rubik's Cube are made up of either dyed plastic, like on this cube, or it'll be some sort of base color, usually black, with colored stickers. Whichever kind of cube you have doesn't really matter, just know that most modern cubes these days are stickerless, like this one here. The first thing I want you to notice is that not all pieces of a Rubik's Cube are actually the same. If we take the cube apart, you'll notice that there are actually three types of pieces. So first of all, there are edge pieces which have 2 colors on them. There are corner pieces which have 3 colors on them. And finally, there are 6 center pieces, which you'll notice are actually all attached together. And with these 3 types of pieces lie the key to solving the Rubik's Cube. Okay, now that we've got the cube assembled again, if you remember earlier when I said that all the centers are actually attached to each other, this is because they're actually fixed. So the centers will actually never move in relation to each other. You'll notice that the white center is always opposite the yellow center. The blue center will always be opposite the green center, and the red center will always be opposite the orange center. And no matter how much I turn the cube, this fact will always remain true. So when we finally get to solving the cube, around the white center will be all of the other white pieces, around the green center will be all the other green pieces, and so on. As for the edges and the corners, you'll notice that every single edge on a 3x3 is unique, and every corner on a 3x3 is also unique. And these are the pieces that we're going to be working with to fit around the centers in the correct way. So what we're actually going to be doing, we're not going to be solving the cube like we're solving one face and then we do that 6 times. We're actually going to solve it up in layers, and we're going to do that over 3 layers. So there's just one thing I need to get out of the way before we get to actually solving the Rubik's Cube, and that is cubing notation. This isn't strictly necessary, but I think it's good to teach to develop a deeper understanding on how the cube works. So holding the cube from any orientation, there are 6 letters you need to remember. U is for up, D is for down, L is for left, R is for right, F is for front, and B is for back. These letters are the core of cubing notation, and they will dictate what moves we do. If you have a letter on its own, for example U, it means to turn the U face, which is the top face here, clockwise. Similarly, if we had R, that means to turn the right face clockwise like that. If the letter is immediately followed by an apostrophe, we call that prime, and that means to turn it in the other direction, which is counterclockwise. So R prime means to do this, and then U prime means to do this. Lastly, if the letter is followed by a 2, then it means to do a double move. So for example, if you have L2, it means to do this. Notice that on a 3x3, it doesn't matter what direction you do in L2, but on other puzzles it may matter. Just know for 3x3 that doing a double turn in this direction is the same as doing a double turn in this direction. And with that being said, now I have a challenge for you. I want you to pull out your cube. I'm going to put some moves up on the screen, and I want you to follow these moves. I want you to do R, U, R prime, U prime. So pause the video and give that a go. So if you started on a solved cube, doing those moves should look like this, and you should end up with a pair of pieces here, like this. If your cube was scrambled already, then that doesn't really matter too much. Just try to practice the move. And with that, you've actually learned your very first algorithm. An algorithm is a pre-memorized series of moves that we use to accomplish something on the cube. In this case, this algorithm is called Sexy Move. I don't know who named it and why it's called this, but just know that it's called Sexy Move. Now I'd like to teach you how to do the Sexy Move, I guess the proper way. So with your left hand, stabilize the cube like this, and I'd like you to hold your cube like this with your thumb on the bottom. You're going to do the first R like this. Do the first U with your index finger like this. R prime, turn your wrist back down this way. And U prime, you're going to use your left index finger and push across like that. Now, if you did start on a solved cube and you've done Sexy Move twice now, if you do it another 4 times, you will notice that the cube will go back to its solved position. There we go. If your cube is scrambled, just practice that a few times and get used to doing this motion with your hands. Now that we know how to do a sexy move, the second algorithm that I'm going to teach you is simply to do a sexy move with your left hand. So stabilize the cube with your right hand, and I want you to do it the same way. This time the algorithm goes L prime, U prime, L, U, like this. So turn your wrist for the first L prime, using your left hand, push with your index finger for the first U prime, then L like this, and then U with your right index finger. And if you repeat this enough times, you will end up back in the solved position. And with that, I think we're ready to start the tutorial. So go ahead and scramble up the cube, do a bunch of random turns until it looks sufficiently scrambled up. So firstly, I'm going to preface this by saying that the method that I'm going to be teaching in this video is not necessarily the easiest beginner method, but first of all, I believe in you and I think you can do this. And second of all, the reason I'm teaching this slightly more advanced method is because I think that it's easy enough, but it will set you up for success if you choose to delve deeper into speedcubing. So like I said, I think you got this. The first step is what we're going to call building the daisy, and this is what it looks like. You'll notice that we have the yellow center here surrounded by the 4 white edge pieces, and this is what we want. So first of all, start by holding your cube so then the yellow center is on top, and we're going to be attaching each of the white edges one by one. So first of all, I want you to look around the cube and pick one of the edges with white on it. For example, here's one. And you'll notice that there are a few different cases that you can come up with. If the edge is in the middle layer, then you should hopefully find this pretty easy. You can move this up in one move, like this. If you say have a case where the edge is on the bottom, you can move it up with a double move, like this. If it's in the bottom, but facing the wrong way, so you can't move it up with a double move, then you can just do a single move, and that'll bring it to the middle layer, which is how I taught you earlier. But if you notice here that if I try to move this up in one move, then it's actually going to replace one of the ones that I solved earlier, and that's not good. So what we're going to do is take one of the empty spots that we haven't solved yet and move it here instead. That way, it preserves this edge, and we're replacing a non-solved edge like that. And the last kind of case that you can get is if your edge is already in the top, but it's flipped the wrong way. All you have to do is turn that face itself. So then the edge goes back in the middle layer, and just like before, you can move it up in one move. In this case, once again, we just need to put the unsolved edge here. So then when we move it up in one move, it replaces something else. And now we have the daisy. The next step we're going to solve is called the white cross, and this is very, very simple. We're going to move all those white edges that we solved into the daisy into the bottom layer, and what you'll notice is that each of the edges also match up with the correct center, like this. As a counterexample, this looks like a white cross, but it's actually not, because the edges are not in the correct place, and I will show you how to solve that properly. So from our daisy, I want you to pick one of the edges, let's say this one. We're going to turn this top face, so then the color here matches with the correct center. So that's green. That's the green center. So if I turn the top face like this, you'll see that they match up. And once it matches up, you can then do a double move on that green side. And what you'll see is that that attaches that edge to your white center. And we're just going to repeat this 3 more times. So this is orange. Where's the orange center? It's over here. So we're going to turn the top face. So then orange matches orange. And then we're going to do a double move on the orange side. And that attaches our second edge. Repeat this 2 more times. Blue goes here. Do a double move here. And finally red. And we have our white cross. So I said before that we're actually going to be building the cube up in layers. So our next step is to actually solve the entire first layer. So holding your cross on the bottom, for simplicity's sake, I want you to find a corner with white on it on the top layer. So here's one. white, orange, and green. I want you to find those other two colors. That's not white, so orange and green. Find those centers. Here they are. I want you to hold one on the front and one on the right, like this. And find your corner that you were working with and move it above the slot. Here. So they're between the orange and green centers. And what you're going to do now is repeat that sexy move that I taught you earlier over and over again until this corner solves into its spot. So R, U, R prime, U prime like this has put it in its slot, but it's not quite solved there. So we're going to do it again. It's still here, and one more time. And now it's solved. You just need to repeat this process another 3 times with the other 3 white corners. So here's another one. White, red, green. There's red and green. Hold one on the front, one on the right. Put the corner on top of its spot. And sexy move. There it is. Here's my next one, white, orange, blue. It's above the spot, orange and blue. Sexy move. That time it only took 1 repetition. Let's say this is my last one, white, red, blue. I will put it above its slot, red and blue here. Sexy move. And repeat until it's solved. And there is your first layer. If you ever run into a situation where you don't have any white corners on top, simply find one. There it is. Put it on the right. Just do 1 sexy move and you'll find that it will move to the top layer. And once it's there in the top layer, you can now solve it. So, as you may have guessed, the next step is to actually solve the second layer. And you'll see that the second layer composes of 4 edges. So, for simplicity's sake, once again, I want you to try to pick an edge on top that doesn't have yellow on it. The reason for that is because yellow is going to be our last layer that we solve, so all these edges that we're solving here will not have yellow. So here's one, blue and red. I want you to look at the side color, so not the top color, the one on the side here, and match it up with the correct center. So blue, the blue center is over here. So turn the top face, and you'll notice that now that edge matches up here. Now you're going to determine whether this edge needs to go to the left or to the right. So looking at the other color here, red. So this is a blue-red edge. It doesn't need to go here because that's orange, but it does need to go here. So this edge needs to go to the right. If your edge needs to go to the right, you're going to first move it away from its slot like this. You're going to do a sexy move with your right hand. You are going to rotate the entire cube to the right like this. And then do a sexy move with your left hand. For those of you who are curious, the notation for a rotation to the right like this is a Y. We write that with a lowercase y. Then we're going to repeat that process again. So for example, this one here, we're going to line up blue with blue here. Face that side. Now this one needs to go to the left. If it needs to go to the left, this is a different case, but it's just the mirror image of what we did before. So if it needs to go to the left, first you move it away from its slot. Here, we're going to do a sexy move with our left hand. L prime, U prime, L, U. This time we're going to rotate to the left, which is Y prime, and now a sexy move with our right hand. Here's our next edge. It needs to go to the left, so we move it away. Sexy move with your left hand, rotate to the left, sexy move with the right hand. Here's our last edge, match up red with red. Face that side, move it away from the slot, sexy move with your right hand, rotate to the right, sexy move with your left hand. And you should have your first 2 layers solved. Now there's one road bump you can run into, and it's if that edge is already in its correct slot, but it's flipped the wrong way like this. All you need to do is you need to insert any of the other edges into that slot, and that should kick this edge into the top layer. So I might insert this edge here, so move it away from the slot, sexy move with my right hand, rotate to the right, sexy move with my left hand. And you'll see that now the edge that was originally in here is now on the top layer, and we should be able to solve this normally. like that. The next step, we are going to try to solve the cross on the top side. And this is done very differently to the cross on the bottom side, and I'll show you why. So now that we're on to our last layer, two things. First of all of the pieces that we have yet to solve will be very, very restricted on where they can be. And second of all, everything that we've solved so far, we need to preserve. So for those two reasons, the rest of the method from here on out will be very, very algorithm heavy. So this is the hardest part of solving the Rubik's Cube. And I urge you guys that if you need to pause the video at any point to work anything out, or if you need to rewatch parts, I've left chapters down along the timeline. Feel free to rewatch anything you need, pause the video, everything like that. So, well done for getting this far. Here we go. Okay, so you're going to come across one of 3 different cases to solve the cross on the top. We're going to look at the yellow edges, ignore the corners. You might either have a line like this, an L, or you might just have a dot. Starting with the line, I want you to hold it horizontally. What we're going to do is this algorithm. F, sexy move, F prime. And that should solve your cross. If you have an L, I want you to hold it like this, so the edges point to the right and towards the front. The algorithm goes like this. You'll notice that we have a lowercase f that refers to a wide move. So instead of doing a single layer F like we did before, we're actually going to do a double layer F like this. Sexy move, and then wide F prime. A good way to remember and differentiate these cases is that a line like this is skinny, that's why you do a skinny F move. And an L like this is wider, and that's why we do a wide F move. Lastly, if you get a dot, you can do any of these two algs. For example, if you do F, sexy, F prime, you should end up with one of the 2 cases you had before. And then you should be able to solve your cross like that. Okay, we're getting pretty close. So the next step is we're going to try to orient all of these corners. So then by the end of it, we'll have the entire yellow face solved. So before I show you the cases, I need to teach you a new algorithm. This one is called Sune, and it goes like this. You read it across the top here. The correct way to finger trick it, I want you to start in this grip again, similar to how you started your sexy move. It goes R, U, R prime. And you'll notice that those first 3 moves took out these 2 pieces. This is called a pair, so it took it out from here to here. You're going to do another U, so the pair is here. And from here, you're going to do R, U2 with your left index finger, R prime. So essentially, you took out this pair, moved it with a U, and you put it back all in one go. R, U2, R prime. And that is called a Sune. So similarly to the last step, there are a few different cases to remember, and they look like this. You might either have 1 corner solved, 2 corners solved, or no corners solved. If you have 1 corner solved, I want you to put that corner in the front left, and I want you to do a Sune. This may or may not solve the cube. If it doesn't, you'll just need to do it again. There will still be 1 corner solved, so put that in the front left, and then do a Sune. And you should have the top face solved. If you have 2 corners solved, 2 of them won't be solved, and I want you to look at these corners, and I want you to hold the cube in an orientation, so that if you have one of the unsolved corners in the front left here, its yellow part points towards you. So this isn't correct, but this is. From here, you can just do a Sune, and you should have 3 corners solved, and you should be able to solve it like that previous case. Lastly, if all 4 corners are unsolved, simply find an orientation, so then one of the unsolved corners in the front left points to the left. In this case, do a Sune. From there, you should have 1 solved corner, and you can solve it the same way you did before. So to recap these 3 cases, a good way to remember it is I want you to pay attention to this front left corner. If you have 3 unsolved corners, then put the solved corner here, so it should be pointing up, and this is where you do your Sune from. If you've got 2 solved corners, 2 of them will be unsolved, have one of the unsolved ones here in the front left, with the yellow pointing towards you. Do a Sune. And this should lead to the case you had previously. If you've got 4 unsolved corners, have the one in the front left. Make sure it's pointing to the left here. Do a Sune. And then you should have the same case as before. Okay, so we're nearly there. So the next step is to solve all of your top layer corners. So then the only things left to solve are just the edges of your top layer. This is how we're going to do it. I want you to look around the top layer of your cube for headlights. Headlights are 2 corners on the same side that share a color. So these are headlights here. It may be that you have no headlights whatsoever, or if you have headlights on all 4 sides, it actually means that your corners are solved and you've actually skipped this step. So if you have headlights, I'd like you to hold the headlights on the right side of the cube. You are going to rotate to the bottom like this. So this is called an X rotation if you want to know. And you're going to do an algorithm. This is called an A Perm. It goes R2, D2, R, U, R prime, D2, R, U prime, R. Here's how I like to remember that algorithm because it's the longest one that we've learned so far. R2D2 is that droid from Star Wars, so you can remember it like that. RU R prime is the first 3 moves of Sexy move. Then you do D2 again. And then the last 3 moves, just find a way to remember it. It's RU prime R. I like to think of it as it kind of just rolls upwards like that. But yeah, find a way to commit that to memory. I'm sure you can do it. It just takes a little bit of practice and repetition. If you have no headlights, then you'll just need to do an A Perm from any angle. So X rotation, R2D2, RU R prime D2, RU prime R. And then you should have headlights somewhere, and then do that algorithm again. And then your corners should be solved. Okay, so here we go. This is the last step on solving a Rubik's Cube. After this step, hopefully we should have a completely solved cube. Okay, so there are technically 4 cases here, but 2 that you need to worry about. The first of which is if you have all 4 of your edges in the wrong place. The second of which is if you actually have one of the edges in the correct place. So you have a solved face like this. I want you to remember back to before when we were talking about the centers of a cube and how they stay fixed. And I want you to remember the opposite colors. So white is opposite yellow, blue is opposite green, and red is opposite orange. So facing the solved face, on the left and the right, you're going to look at the corners and edges. One side is going to have adjacent colors, and one side is going to have opposite colors. So red and green are adjacent colors because the 2 centers aren't opposite each other, but red and orange are opposite each other. So this side has opposite colors, this side has adjacent colors. So the adjacent side is on the right, which means you're going to start with your right hand. The algorithm goes like this. Sexy move with your right hand. Sexy move with your left hand. 5 sexy moves with your right hand. And 5 sexy moves with your left hand. I really recommend getting comfortable with doing the sexy move. Get that into your muscle memory so you can focus on counting here so you don't mess anything up. And the cube should be solved. If instead you had the adjacent colors on the left here, so orange and blue are adjacent, green and blue are opposites, so the adjacent colors on the left, it's a similar case, it's just a complete mirror. So you're going to start with your left hand instead, so 1 sexy move with your left hand, 1 sexy move with your right hand, 5 with your left, and 5 with your right. Lastly, if you have all 4 edges not solved, then you just need to do one of those 2 cases. It doesn't matter which one. So let's start with our right hand. Sexy move with our left, 5 sexy moves with our right, and 5 sexy moves with our left. And then we should have a solved face somewhere. And then you should have one of the cases you had before. And there you go, you've just solved your first Rubik's Cube, so congratulations. I'd recommend watching this video a couple times, rewatching the parts until you commit everything to memory. So there you go, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions about anything whatsoever, leave it in the comments down below. As many of you guys watching this video are beginners, if you are looking for a good, modern, beginner-friendly Speedcube to buy, head on over to craftykube.com.au, which is actually the cube store that I own, and this is the one that I suggest at the time of recording this video. This is the Moyu RS3M V5, which the lowest SKU here is available for $14, and if you're looking for something a bit more premium, the top of the line here is $40, and this is actually the cube that I use myself. And there are a few other versions in between those price ranges if you want as well. Just make sure to use discount code RAF for 6% off of anything that you'd like to buy from CraftyCube. And with that, that's the end of the video. Congratulations once again on solving your first ever Rubik's Cube. I'm so proud. If you did enjoy the video, leave a like and a comment down below, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more cubing content. And go and show off to your friends now. See ya.